She stood there, belly big, hands shaking. And then she said it. She said the baby was his. My father's friend. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. I was sitting on the floor, my back against the wall. My mother dropped the cup she was holding, and it shattered on the ground. My father just sat there, staring at the girl. I don't know what was going through his mind. Maybe he was hoping she was lying. Maybe he was hoping she would just disappear. Her name was Amina. She was 16. She was like a little sister to me. She used to braid my hair, and we used to laugh about stupid things. She wasn't like other girls in the village, she was quiet, always thinking, always dreaming. But now, she wasn't laughing. She wasn't dreaming. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was shaking. My father's friend, Uncle Musa, sat in the corner, rubbing his hands together. He wasn't looking at her. He wasn't looking at anyone. He just kept staring at the ground, breathing heavy. My mother was the first to speak. What did you say? Her voice was shaking. Amina swallowed hard. The baby, it's Uncle Musa's. Silence again. The kind that makes your stomach turn. Then my father stood up. Just like that. No words, no warning. He moved so fast I barely saw it coming. He grabbed Uncle Musa by the collar and threw him against the wall. The sound of the impact made my skin crawl. My mother screamed. You touched her, my father roared. Uncle Musa didn't say a word. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes were wide, like a goat caught in the grip of a lion. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But I couldn't move. Amina was crying now, her whole body shaking. She kept saying she was sorry. Sorry for what? For being hurt? For being tricked? For carrying the child of a man who was supposed to protect her? My father punched Uncle Musa. Once. Twice. Blood dripped from his nose. My mother tried to pull my father back, but he was too strong, too angry. Then the elders came. Somebody must have run to call them. Old men and women poured into the house, their faces tight with judgment. They didn't look at Uncle Musa. They looked at Amina. One of them, an old woman with gray hair wrapped in a scarf, shook her head. This is a shame, she said. A great shame. I thought she was talking about Uncle Musa. I thought she was talking about the way he had destroyed Amina's life. But then I realized, she was looking at Amina. They blamed her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that it wasn't her fault. That she was just a girl. That this man, this disgusting, evil man, had stolen something from her. But I didn't say anything. Because I knew it wouldn't matter. How it all began. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Amina, about how this happened. Amina's mother had died when she was small, and her father left the village years ago. She lived with her grandmother, but the old woman was weak and could barely walk. Amina did everything, fetching water, cooking, washing clothes. She never complained. She spent a lot of time in our house. My mother loved her, treated her like another daughter. We shared food with her when things were hard. But we never knew what she was going through. I kept asking myself, when did it start? I remembered small things. How Uncle Musa always talked about how pretty she was. How he would send her on errands to his house when his wife wasn't home. How he would sit too close to her, touch her shoulder, laugh at things only he understood. But we never saw it. We never thought about it. Because he was family. And then, one day, she was pregnant. And now, standing in my house, with all these people watching her, they were acting like it was her fault. The decision. The elders spoke in low voices. Some of the men took my father outside. My mother sat on the floor, staring at the broken cup, like she wanted to put it back together but didn't know how. I stayed near Amina. She was still crying. She kept whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." A man from the elders, Baba Juma, stood up and cleared his throat. His face was full of deep lines, his voice rough. "This is a disgrace," he said. "A girl without a husband carrying a child. This will bring bad luck to the village." Nobody spoke. Then he turned to my father. "She cannot stay." My heart dropped. "No," my mother said. "She has nowhere to go." Baba Juma shook his head. "This is not a place for a girl like her. If she stays, other girls will follow her example. She has made her bed, let her lie in it." My mother stood up. "She didn't." But my father held up his hand, stopping her. He didn't look at my mother. He didn't look at me. He just looked down. And I knew what he was going to say before he said it. "Amina has to go." Amina let out a soft sound, like a wounded animal. My mother gasped. And just like that, it was decided. The goodbye. At dawn, Amina left. She had nothing but a small bundle of clothes. Nobody helped her pack. Nobody walked with her. She didn't cry anymore. She didn't beg. She just walked. I stood at the door, watching her disappear down the dusty road. I wanted to call her name. I wanted to tell her she wasn't alone. But I didn't. And Uncle Musa? He stayed. He stayed like nothing had happened. Like he wasn't a monster. Like he still belonged among us. And that, I think, was the scariest part of all.